Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Hello, and welcome to Champions of Psychology, a show with the goal of openly talking about mental health and gaming, presented by Codename Entertainment and TakeThis.org. Every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNE Games, or later on your favorite podcast service, Mitra Jordan and Raffael Boccamazzo, aka Dr. B, talk about mental health in these unprecedented times, as well as how gaming affects us. If you're here with us live in the chat and you leave a question that I, Treavor Bettis, will ask them later in the show, our topic today is going to be how games have helped us, coming back for Season 3 of this show. But before we get to that, Mitra, Dr. B, who are you for people who may not know?
Okay, as is traditional, I get to go first, apparently, because this guy says so. I am a registered clinical counselor, psychotherapist in Victoria, BC, working with families, adults, lots of people, and also I'm someone who really loves games and has found them to be a wonderful and positive influence in my life. And so I also work with games therapeutically and help people work through any issues they may have with games.
Yeah.
Often their issues look like, I play too many video games. And so we talk about that.
Well, I am Raffael Boccamazzo, better known as Dr. B for long Italian name reasons. If you are just joining us for the very first time, they laugh at that every time. It's been 21 shows now, and they laugh at that every time.
I told my friends recently about that.
I do nothing but policy and education these days, though I was clinically trained. I did used to work with people. I may eventually one day. I don't know. My career has been a fluid and wonderful thing. I'm also, so as the clinical director of TakeThis.org, I do a lot of public speaking, education, this sort of thing. And I also am an expert on the applied use of role-playing games in clinical and learning settings. And I am so pumped to talk about how games have helped us, because I think so many of us were aware of that beforehand, but in a weird, thanks pandemic, people are like coming over to our side of things now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So yeah, where do we want to start with this? Because it is kind of more a this one we're gonna have something, slight spoilers for later in the season. We're gonna have something that looks more at gaming with other people, but this one's a little bit more personal about how specifically we have found games have helped us. So yeah, where do you want to start with that?
I want to apologize to what people just found out. I am currently dog sitting for a small dog that has some separation anxiety.
Super cute small dog.
She's perfectly welcome here.
You're gonna have to show her off for a second.
I feel a little bad, like she's not my dog. I almost feel like should I show someone else's dog on camera?
I get that.
Well,
I get that.
It's a good question, but she clearly wants to be here, so there's that.
Yeah, if she barks enough, that's her being like, I need my 15 minutes.
I consent.
Yes.
But however, games do a lot for us. I mean, we know that games are more than the moral panic makes it seem a lot of the time. So whether it's video games, whether it's board games, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons, every one of these has had their moment of, will somebody think of the children?
Yes.
And I incidentally, I've written about some of it. I love writing about the moral panic around D&D in the 80s and 90s, concurrent with the satanic panic. And but we know that games are a meaningful way of bringing us all together, and that video games, actually, there's emerging research to show the idea that video games as an interactive form of media is a fantastic way of self-regulating mood. Like a lot of people say,
Definitely.
when I'm angry, I go listen to music, I go watch TV, I go watch a movie. Video games have been shown in certain studies to be an even better form of self-regulation than traditional media like movies and music. So it's just there are benefits out there that we just don't hear enough, because that's not,
That's not
sensational.
the dominant narrative.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always tie in with people's, not some people, particularly humans who haven't played video games, may have a very limited recognition of how valuable they can be, right? So that the narrative around, oh, this is harmful or dangerous, can really take over in situations where we don't know and we don't have any personal experience. So
So I think good question to like kind of start this off is, what games have helped you and how did they help you?
yeah.
Well, I have definitely got my stories, but I want to let you two go first.
You want to let us two go first?
Yes.
Okay.
All
right.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can intersperse.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's a thing we can do. Okay, so I found, for me, growing up as an only child with a bunch of adults around me, that games were a great equalizer. It can be a little bit lonely at times, particularly if you kind of move countries and don't have a lot of friends your own age. And so getting to just play games put me and the adults around me on a more equal footing for that time that we were playing together. And that really helped. That was certainly a start. Yeah. And then, of course, in all the traveling as a kid, you don't need to really understand the same language to play the street games, right? You don't, it's okay if you're not fluent to play tag, right? Or skipping rope games.
Yeah.
So that really helped out in terms of getting to play and hang out with other kids in the non-English speaking countries in which I lived. Or temporarily relocated to, probably is the most accurate way of sharing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I do really quickly want to put in there, chat, if you would like to bring up a game that helped you and the way that it helped you, go ahead and put it in there, and we'll see if we can get them in at the end of the show. Yeah, the two that because like I did have like a list of things on here, but like the two that I definitely wanted to say, one of them is, I've talked about here before, is Pokemon Red and Blue helped me learn how to read. Like, I did not like reading. It was not my thing. I got ADHD and a little bit, it's undiagnosed, but I've got a little bit of dyslexia because I couldn't tell the difference between a B and a D until 6th grade. That was the one where it was like, no, I want to read this. I want to read everything that everyone is saying. And oh god, there's a pupper. Oh god, it has arrived. Audio listeners, you're missing out.
Oh my God. The compact perfection.
And
rotundity.
yeah. And yeah, the being able to be sitting there with the game, being so interested in everything that was going on and wanting to actually, for the first time, having the want to read, not just what was coming up on the screen, but the player's guide. Like, I had that thing with me all the time. Like, if I couldn't have my Game Boy with me, I had my player's guide with me, because everyone was like, oh, it's just a book, it's fine. And okay, Dr. B, what about you? We'll do the interspersing thing.
I mean, God, I've got a lot. Games were my refuge growing up. That, being undiagnosed autistic, I was often really out of step with my peers. And the, game, similarly to you, Trevor, Nintendo Power was something I would devour in terms of reading. And people were pumped because, it was reading. Additionally, oh, and there she goes. off my lap. She is real anxious today. But I still actually got the first 70 issues of Nintendo Power, and the first issue is framed. But beyond that, like I had some really gnarly medical procedures done when I was about 10 years old, and I won't get into details around that. But after one particularly just real gnarly one that was one of the more painful experiences of my life, my mom took me to a local store and she said, "Hey, pick out one game for your Game Boy." And I did. The original Kirby's Dream Land was just fresh out at the time.
Nice.
Okay, just a couple months old. And we didn't know Kirby was pink yet because it was black and white. But I picked it, and for the next couple of hours, I forgot about how painful what just happened to me was. I was distracted, and I got to explore what it was to, be a flying, ravenous marshmallow. We still don't know. And eventually that moved into things like tabletop RPGs that help me connect with people. But I mean, I have got no shortage of ways that games have helped me, and I feel like if I continue going, I am going to completely dominate this. So I want to throw this back to you.
All right. Well, I'll go next. So for me, initially, it was board games, because when I was a kid, because I'm old, there were no video games. So actually, what I remember as a teenager was because not growing up in North America meant that even when things like Atari came out, we didn't have access to them right away. None of my friends had that. But one of my friends got one of the first Apple, I think it was the Apple IIe, and it had Othello on it. And I was transfixed. And really, it's just a very simple checkers type game. But I was absolutely transfixed that you could sort of virtually play this thing.
You didn't have to set it all up. You could just, it was there. And
it was there.
They flipped things over for you.
Right. And you didn't have to play with a person. You could play against the computer. So you could actually play a game by yourself, but it felt interactive because it was kind of like with someone else, but not. But, Anyway, so it didn't matter about losing either, right? Because something that can be tough about games is losing versus winning and how you deal with that. And it's actually, that's one of the best things about games, is figuring out how to deal with losing. And we'll get to that. But anyway, at the time, it was just like this thing. And I was fascinated. And to this day, I actually quite love technology. And I do rather enjoy my Apple products, I'll confess. I don't care really. I'll use any screen if it's a game. And I will also, I have an Animal Crossing Switch,
But, and we got the limited edition Animal Crossing one.
I have the base for it right here.
Yes,
that's amazing.
And did you know you can play all Codenames games on it too?
Yep.
Well, you can certainly.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Idle Champions is on there.
It is.
Why did you tell me this, Mitra?
Because, if you didn't know that you could kind of play it on the go on your Switch, you shouldn't you? Shouldn't you know these things? I can't leave you out of it.
Because I need Idle Champions on one more system.
Right. You'd have to, you do. You really do. Why not?
All the systems.
All the systems. They're so great. So, I mean, I knew that there was this sort of nascent love of technology and definitely a love of games. But I think, unfortunately, many women were sort of kept. Many women weren't really encouraged to play video games, and we certainly have talked about that in previous episodes. And so there was this negative association with video games, and certainly the types of games that were coming out weren't necessarily super exciting to me. And then I didn't necessarily have the best systems on which to play games either, because mostly I had laptops. So as time went on, the ability and the access to some of the better and more interesting games, it just didn't occur to me.
So you got real good at Minesweeper.
I played a lot of those types of games. I played a lot of word games too, actually. as time went on. But at this early point, mostly I didn't really play games. It was actually getting together with Eric that got me involved in games. Yeah, I still remember actually having, I think, a fairly typical spouse response to your partner playing games for hours. You know, when you go into the room and you say something like, there are pink hippopotami circling on the ceiling in the kitchen, and your partner says, yeah, sounds great.
I want to play D&D at your house so much.
I want you to play D&D at my house. Like, this is just like, it will be so lovely. Incidentally, I get my second vaccine shot today. I'm pretty excited and also terrified.
I'll check in with you tomorrow, see how you're feeling.
Tell me, how awful will it be? But in any case, yeah. So at first hearing, I'm on it, I got it, I'm on it, I got it. That's Command and Conquer for you. Really, really irritated me. And I almost wanted to just jump in there and turn his system off, you know, because like I was not present. And so certainly I think for a lot of people, that's kind of a negative association with games, but you can move through this, people, and you can join your partner and you can play games together and you can have a lot of fun. And for years, our family played World of Warcraft together.
Yeah.
And that was the best.
And we might go into that more later on down the road in the season.
Yeah, we'll talk about games and relationships. But I know for me, it was a revelation to be able to play a game like World of Warcraft and to be in kind of a Tolkien-like world where I was a powerful elf running around. You know, I mean, it was just like, it just kind of brought all of the fantasy tropes that I had loved so much to life in an interactive and fascinating way that I had just not known was possible. And so, and playing with other people, some of the time, we all know pickup groups aren't a joy, but navigating the negative energy sometimes in those environments actually helps us better manage it in our lives. So
you know, as we were talking about this yesterday, Mitra, and you were talking about some of the lessons we learn from gaming, such as frustration tolerance, and I see that some people are talking about cribbage in the chat, which, by the way, yes, I have been playing that since I was 6. It has become a great bonding thing, and I probably played, and I'm not even kidding, 1,000 games during the pandemic.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes 3 games a day. Often. But yeah, there's so many of the lessons that we're talking about that a lot of I've heard parents and educators talk about when it comes to traditional sports. Like, you know, football teaches us the frustration tolerance, winning, losing, fair play, et cetera, but we so rarely, we're starting to more, but we so rarely hear that discussed within the context of, let's say, Destiny 2.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm wearing that shirt.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
I didn't
I'm
notice.
wearing my Season of Triumph shirt.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't hear about that enough talked about in Destiny 2 or Mario Party, which I'm not allowed to play with certain people anymore.
Oh,
Words
my
were said,
goodness.
I can't take them back.
Oh my god.
I'm having a flashback to the winter of '96, which in Victoria was the time of the big dump because it doesn't snow much here. And there was this absolutely massive snowfall. And my husband's best friend, and I was there at that time engaged, but the guy who was going to be our best man, essentially, who'd been planning on a wild New Year's Eve in Vancouver, was stranded with us, just the two of us, over Christmas and New Year's. Actually, I think he'd come home for Christmas. So he was stranded with us over New Year's. And the 3 of us were playing Super Mario on the N64. That snowman slide got me every time. Hours and hours of this thing.
The worst. Oh my god.
Time stopped.
Yes.
There was only the snowman.
Yeah, there was only the snowman. That sounds
But
like
it was a real
no
bonding
time, only
experience, the
snowman.
three of us.
By the way, the lines "time stopped, there was only the snowman" are the most terrifying first words of a novel I need to write.
Oh my god, yes.
I want to read this. The great, this is actually, that feels like an extension of Calvin and Hobbes, like the Snowman House of Horrors.
Yes.
Totally.
This is Bill Watterson's next project under a pseudonym. That time stopped. There was only the snowman and the ensuing rampage.
It was like an endless loop. You're at the bottom, you're at the top again, trying to make it down.
It's interesting to think about. It's really interesting to think about all of these virtues that we ascribe to, in real life, meat space activities that we have been historically as a society hesitant to ascribe to video games. And despite the fact that the stereotype of the I don't want to say antisocial, because that has a very specific meaning in psychology, but the sort of negatively social, super introverted gamer dude with no social graces living in under the bridge in mom's basement with poor hygiene, that stereotype is largely inaccurate. I mean, look at the three of us. We're gamers. And so many of my relationships were built around the idea of games. I've got so many good memories of 16-player Worm Armageddon tournaments when I was a teenager. And really making my friend's dad angry when we cheered too loudly at 3 a.m.
I mean, I've talked about on the show before, but like playing Halo 2 online with a bunch of people helped me figure out what my personality was, and like made me go like, oh, okay, don't do this because you're being a jerk. Don't do that. But by seeing the way that people were presenting themselves, by seeing the way that I was presenting myself, playing those games online and talking with people and interacting with them completely helped my social interaction. The last one that I wanted to bring up real quick before we move into some specifics about this topic is because I've talked about Dark Souls 3 and Celeste helping with depression, but like one of them that I realized only recently helped me at a really young age with it was Majora's Mask. Which is,
and I hear, having never played Majora's Mask, it causes a lot of feelings for people.
See, because Majora's Mask is actually about grieving. All of the areas are about grief, and the thing that I realized it had a lot in common with Dark Souls actually is because everyone is having the worst day ever, but they're all trying to be like, it's fine, don't worry, we're all good, it's fine. And you're walking through it going, everything's terrible, like I'm trying to help you all, what is going on? And so it's a weird walkthrough of a world full of depression that's being covered up by a mask, and it's so interesting that masks are a huge part of that game. And like thinking,
maybe I should actually play this game.
Oh yeah, no, you have Majora's Mask is one of my favorite games ever.
Definitely convincing me. Yeah.
And so like thinking about what, because I definitely had, I mean, my mom has told me this, she was like, I definitely had childhood depression, and thinking about the things that I did in those games and the experiences that I had and the way it made me feel, I was like, oh, that actually rings a lot of bells with like how Dark Souls 3 was with me and like how it helped me through stuff. But one of the things that I think that we should talk about is the next section of it was the self-determination theory, because I brought that up yesterday. Is like, what is that? I hadn't heard that before. So what is self-determination theory?
Well, it's this idea that simply, how do we explain this simply? That people do things for different reasons. Okay. And so back in the days when I used to work with people, I would, parents would come in concerned often about how much their kids were playing games, and they concerned about the addictive quality of the games, which that's a different episode we did. I have a lot of thoughts on that and the misuse of that term. But we looked at people's motivations for playing the games. Like, were they playing the games to achieve a certain sense of competence that they didn't feel socially? Were they doing it to feel empowered? Were they doing it to find connection? Were they doing it to bolster themselves in some way that we haven't been able to, to admit? Like, because kids and teenagers talk about their emotions very differently than adults do. I mean, that seems sort of an obvious thing, but it's true. They don't process emotions the same way. And so we would often look at why they were playing the games and why some of these games were taking up so much of their time. And very frequently it was because that was the only vehicle they had to feel or achieve the things they wanted to achieve, whether that's friends or a sense of heroicism or social competence, or even as a vehicle for social connection because they struggled with various learning disabilities or cognitive challenges. So just in a nutshell, and to paraphrase Terry Pratchett, it's a lie, but it's a really useful lie. Think of it as just like, what's my motivation? Why do I play games?
Okay.
What am I reinforcing about myself?
Right. What do I want to achieve?
It is always funny to me, like, when I'll be playing a game and not realize that there would like I'm so into it. I think it's just, I'm like, oh, this is just because it's so much fun and everything. And then I realize that I'm learning something and I'm like, whoa.
I think games teach a lot. Yeah. About ourselves and kind of how to manage interactions with other people in them as well. But also they help us figure out what we like. And this one's a little bit more subtle because, when you look at a game, you can't always tell if you're not thinking about the mechanics of the game, for example, or what sorts of things occur within the game. You can't always tell if it's something you're going to enjoy, which is why I think Let's Plays are so great, It's odd because you don't want to give away too much. And at the same time, it's really neat to be able to experience a game for a little bit and go, would I like this? Would I make the same choices? What sorts of things? It's kind of a cool way to get to try it out, especially since not all games can get returned. So there's that.
Wait, you can return games? I think I tried that once with Simon's Quest, Castlevania 2, because I played it at way too young of an age and it actually scared me.
Oh, no!
Yeah.
It actually scared me. I remember being like 7 years old and calling the store that my parents bought it from because I was, undiagnosed autistic and precocious as all get out. And I was like, yes, well, this game had content that I didn't expect, and I wonder what your return policy is on games that give you nightmares. The store clerk, as I recall, was unsympathetic and confused.
Yeah. God, you're making me remember. I was just like, what was the first game that scared me? And I realized it was freaking multiplayer in GoldenEye because there was one dude you could unlock that was the scary mummy dude.
Slappers only?
Oh, I remember watching that.
It wasn't the multiplayer. It was one of the secret levels. There was like this like weird...
The catacombs?
Yeah, the catacombs. That dude scared the crap out of me. I learned that about myself. I didn't like catacombs or dead people.
Yeah, I can't do horror, period. So I can't really do horror games. I remember terrifying myself by actually reading The Amityville Horror at 13. And then, I just remember seeing glowing red eyes everywhere as I was lying there in the dark.
Oh, thank you.
Couldn't possibly. Sorry, can't unsee it now. Yes. So if a book could do that, I definitely don't watch horror movies. So
yeah.
Well, one of the things I to backtrack a moment, I forgot to mention as I was, one of the science communication is an interesting challenge, kids, because you're trying to condense really complex ideas down into a easily bite-sized chunks. And one of the things I forgot as I was trying to kind of condense self-determination theory is this idea that the choices we make are sort of based on our motivations, are sort of they display the sort of personal growth we want to achieve. If I didn't make that clear, I needed to. It's weird to condense things down, but Yeah, I've talked about that in the past in regards to like the characters I created playing Dungeons and Dragons, especially in my teen years, that they were always charismatic and suave and socially aware in ways that I definitely was not.
It's true. You get to try out certain
It's true. I'm
things in
not
games.
socially aware.
No, that is not what I'm saying.
Not in the least. I issue apologies to Mitra semi-daily.
All right, let's take a quick break to remind our viewers and listeners of our disclaimer, and then when we come back, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the RPG factor of this. So we'll be right back.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Okay, so we've talked about like RPGs and stuff with, you know, the way that we've been able to try out things like what you were just talking about there. And I am kind of sad that I didn't find tabletop RPGs at a younger age, because I do feel like they actually have a lot, if run by the right person, that can teach younger kids about life. I mean, I used to run games at a bookstore, and the majority of people that showed up were kids. And it was really interesting sometimes to see when a kid would like do something that was absolutely just terrible to someone, and I'd have an NPC react, was like, why would you do that? That was so mean. And the kid would go, what? So I've explained it to my sister-in-law when I was playing when I was running games for my nephews. I was like, yeah, this will help them learn with math. This will help them learn social skills. This has a lot of good applicable things to life. What do you all think about that?
I mean, I 100% agree. And, you know, really a current thought that I'm having about that actually has to do with this.
What?
You didn't see that coming.
No, I legitimately did not.
That coming.
I did not at all.
Are we pulling things out of prop space now?
I can't make music with a lightsaber. Like I don't know what can I do with this? He's got a fez. Okay, we've all got props now. Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we're pulling things out of prop space. Okay.
So what do you mean by that?
Okay, so what I mean by this is that I'm going to set it down now. It's way too tempting if I have it in my hands. That is a small lyre, which my bard character likes to play. Growing up, I played the piano badly. And I lived in the house with my aunt, who played beautifully, but was very shy about performance. Although she was, you know, she and I used to sometimes, she'd teach me how to play as well. And I had piano lessons, but I never got the hang of it really. And I certainly can't sing. And this has been personally actually a source of anxiety and upset. I used to cry about the fact that I couldn't sing. And there wasn't really a time in my life, conveniently over the last while anyway, where I could take voice lessons, but it was a source of great shame and upset. Like, I'm not kidding you. The idea of actually singing, proclaiming poetry is fine. I know I have a good voice for that, and I really enjoy poetry and speaking parts. It's all great, but singing was always terrifying. So I now have a liar, and sometimes I even actually sing badly, but most enjoyably.
Hey.
And it's great fun, and it's been a part of myself that I've gotten to try out and feel
I
much
love
better about.
that.
Hmm. How games have changed us. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So
games. The cool thing, this is a conversation I have with people a lot about the difference between therapy and therapeutic. Because
hmm
after every talk that I or some of my friends, Dr. Megan Connell, Adam and Adam at Game to Grow, the Kilmers over at Game to Grow, we talk, and Jack Birkenstock at the Bodhana Group, we talk about the applied use of role playing games, and people come and ask us, how can we use this to help our friends work through their stuff? Well, first of all, don't. Okay.
exactly.
Don't
Hmm.
deliberately therapize your friends. We did an episode about that. Just don't do it.
Do not.
But creating this, what I think Treavor was talking about is creating a safe space to explore,
Hmm.
to try on different identities, to try on different social behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was trying on different social scripts in a way that was, in a way that was safe enough to fail and try again, and even funny at times. With trusted friends. This is part of the reason that having a trusting, welcoming table and environment is so important. And Mitra's talking about exploring new aspects of herself. And by the way, now Mitra, you and I, we have to get together and sing some Tom Waits, because
We have to.
no one can sing Tom Waits badly.
I don't know. I'm going to challenge that one.
Have
But
you
I
ever
do
heard
really
Tom
enjoy.
Waits?
Yes, he's very grave.
His voice has been described as a pack of cigarettes soaked in whiskey and run over by a steamroller.
I mean, that is perfect, and I feel like there's a good potential I could handle that. But he absolutely does grind the gears of his voice, if that's even a thing. And yet he does know how to apply it correctly, which is why he's good. I think I'm more like Tom Waits, but misaligned or something. Like it's really just
How is Tom Waits not misaligned?
no, man, he knows what he's doing. Let's face it, I don't, but that's part of the pleasure.
We're going to talk about this
Okay,
later.
all right. Here's the thing. I actually enjoy not knowing what I'm doing at times, and getting to visit the places that scare me about myself. Whereas this was just terrifying. Like the one thing that's really tough about moving countries at a point in your life where you haven't felt much of that self-determination, the confidence around creating your own identity, is that you're constantly terrified you're going to say or do the wrong thing. So I know that in my younger years, I really worked at creating that gloss, that sort of, like a cat. I'm going to always land on my feet, and it'll always look intentional, And then honestly, that doesn't make for a good therapist in the least. So I'm much more human with my clients, and I'm me. This is who I am. This is who I am off camera. This is who I am here. And I really value that. I really value getting to come to that place and feel that I can receive myself, so that it doesn't really matter how well things are taken. So to me, games have absolutely been a part of that. Because just as you were saying, Dr. B, that we try out different roles. And the game environment with its clear rules sometimes helps us more effectively try out the roles. And in our social experience, kind of getting to figure out what the rules are, or what rules we can apply to our own behavior. Doesn't matter whether someone else would do the thing. I know that that's not who I am. That kind of rule making also helps us function better in our lives. And games can definitely be a big part of that. So.
And also learn frustration tolerance. Actually, you know what?
Yes, let's get to that. Yeah.
So back in the days when I used to work with people, I would run social skill groups for autistic teens, and we would, have a specific learning goal that week. And A game I absolutely loved for teaching frustration tolerance and dealing with certain aspects of ambiguity is a game called We Didn't Play Test This at All.
Oh God, I know that game.
What a
And
great name.
I remember seeing that in a game store the first time, pointing it out to my wife and going, "At least they're honest."
it is, well, it's what's great about it, and this is really wonderful if you've got like 10 adults, is I've never really seen a game go longer than 5 minutes because there are cards on there that just say you win if everybody is visibly wearing blue, or you win if it's currently raining outside. I had to take that card out living in Seattle, but it's just really cool the lessons that we can learn through these games of these games. Like I mentioned Mario Party. I have gotten much better about not doing certain words during Mario Party. There may be a recording floating around of me insulting somebody's family down to the 3rd generation Klingon style.
Wow, I'd love to hear that, actually. Is there a way to find this?
Listen, I'm a monster when I play certain games. Like, all of this goes away, and I just turn into a monster.
He turns the fez around, and then it's
veneer of civilization?
No, it's like Hulk out time, and it's just not pretty.
I get that. I just realized.
I believe it. I'm just intrigued and curious.
It's not pretty. It's really not. It's not fit for human consumption.
Going off of what you're saying though, with like the learning to be okay with like failure and losing and stuff like that. One of the reasons like I stopped playing Magic the Gathering for a long time was because I would take it so personally when my deck lost, because I spent so much time making it and I wanted it to work so well, and then it just got destroyed and I took it so personally. And now like I've recently gotten back into Magic a lot, and the thing is though is that like I've come back to it now with this like weird new perspective where I get excited when the other person's deck starts doing really well. Like, even though I'm losing, I'm like, oh, this is cool. What's happening here? And like, I get hyped for what they're doing, and it's really weird. And people have been looking at me strangely, but I'm having fun with it again. Because I'm not taking it personally.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually quite the lesson. Like as an only kid, sometimes, you've got times where adults generally cater a bit to you. This didn't happen very often because I didn't have your typical nuclear family, only child sort of stability situation going for any great length of time. But the parents and other family members kind of expect to take care of you, particularly if you're a kid. And generally when they play games, they, in my family anyway, they weren't horribly harsh about it for the most part. There are certain exceptions, but okay, I'm not being clear. What I'm trying to say is that getting to play games as an equalizer and learning to lose was really great. But I ended up doing that I kind of at least at first felt people just had it in for me. Like, couldn't they make the kind choice instead of the mean choice? Like, why did they have to go for, why you have to kill me? So they have to start, it's Parcheesi here, but it's it was called Ludo when I played it. And so it's like, why you have to get rid of my thingies so I have to start at the beginning again?
Hang on.
You could have just gone on by, and you have to take me out. Like,
real quickly, going off that point, Babylon Ranger 2G61 in the chat says, did anyone play Sorry? Because that was really good at teaching no hard feelings. No, it was not.
God.
No, it was not.
God.
I hated every child in my kindergarten school. Oh my God.
No.
So much.
No. Well, so when we were talking yesterday for the pre-production, Mitra brought up a really good point that I think you're hinting at right now, is the idea that playing games, you can see people's motivation, and you learn a lot about people playing games. Treavor brought up the idea of Magic, and I haven't played Magic in 24 years because I stopped, I was young, I was a teenager, I didn't have disposable income, and I stopped playing around Ice Age.
Oh wow.
And Well, yeah. So
Yeah.
a lot of the the really legendary cards were still in circulation in those days. And as a teenager with no disposable income, I was playing, people who were at the time my age now and could afford to throw chaos orbs at me, Mox everything.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
And it wasn't fun to
Yeah.
be a 13-year-old getting stomped
That
every
was me with
time.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it just was discouraging, and the fact that these mid 30, late 30-year-old guys were just
Yep.
taking every opportunity to stomp. And by the way, swindle in trades.
Oh yeah, they were terrible.
A teenager, it was so discouraging. And you can learn a lot about who you trust enough to play games with. Like I mentioned playing cribbage, and the person who I play all the cribbage with, and I have a rule that what's said at the cribbage table stays at the cribbage table. Because again, this goes away. I get mean.
The bow tie comes off.
To the point that they once told me, if you lose, you make me feel bad. If I win, you make me feel bad. How does this work?
Oh no.
So I think that, and this is the thing about games, right? So it's about that, the skills of the various players, right? And we talked a little bit in the pre-production about luck versus skills and how that plays into it in terms of a game feeling equal, right? So obviously you literally stack the deck in that situation of the magic game you're talking about, which is
beautifully
really unfair. So here's the thing with that. When we play games, we need them to not be so simple that they're boring, and not be so complicated and difficult that they're demoralizing. And there's kind of that Goldilocks zone here where it's fun for everyone.
A lot
And
of
you
games
really-
just flew through my head.
Yeah.
Right? So you really have to think about who you're playing what with. And I'm going to say that my wonderful husband, who brought this and has really encouraged me to be the
Liar.
boy I want to be.
Dang it.
I've been resisting.
I know you have. I felt it. I can just tell through the screen. He will never play Scrabble with me. This man will never play Scrabble. And I'm also not remotely interested in playing games like chess and its ilk in terms of the kinds of just real heavy strategy based games. I won't ever play them with him. We know our limits.
Yeah.
We know how to stay married. 24 years in, we have figured it out.
Yes.
For the time being. And you just don't want to hit it's too easy, no one's having fun, and it's so complicated, it's demoralizing. And what is that for both of you or all of you? We'll talk more about that when we get into a little series on games.
Using them.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're definitely get to. I'm very excited about those episodes.
Have either of you seen the recent XKCD? I think it's a recent one, an XKCD comic that's a timeline of an adult game night.
Oh, I think so.
Ooh, I haven't, and I'm
it's
gonna.
so
I'll
brilliant.
look it up,
It's so brilliant. People start coming in, chit-chatting, start setting up the game. I swear it's not as complicated as you think,
no.
rereading the rules.
The best thing I ever did for a single game night was literally find a PDF of the instructions and sent it to everyone and said study, and then we had a great game night. But let's check in with chat and see what they've been up to, see what games have been helping them. Mom23 Reds says card games with my great aunts, bridge with my grandmother, and chess and backgammon with my dad. I used to play chess with my aunt all the time. That was how I learned to play chess, and now I get to play with my nephews, so it's kind of fun. Reaver01, I've been able to connect with people that I probably would not have had the chance to because of pen and paper RPGs, but unfortunately I'm afraid that having games as the best reference may have caused a misdiagnosis from a mental health professional. That's not great.
Find a different mental health professional if you can. Or find a way to share what games mean to you. And I think that this is really a difficult one because in my experience, some mental health professionals, they don't even have to really understand games to be really wonderful about games and how to support people with games.
I
But
sometimes get a little
yeah.
too upset about that sort of stuff where like I will have a conversation with someone who is like a professional in a field and then they'll say something wrong about games and go, all right, I'm going to stop you right there real quick and explain to you why that was wrong. But let's see. CY Morgan says, I have ADHD and moved cities a lot. I learned English from playing MMOs and made friends there too.
Lovely.
I love that. MLB Mickey says, we had a summer of Guitar Hero, got to hang out with my son and his friends, while they taught me to play. And I had a actually very similar thing happen, with my mom. We played Guitar Hero so much. She loved that game so much. And it was really cool bonding with her over it because, like, you know, when I was a kid, I was into orchestra music. Like I was a terrible orchestra nerd. And so like I got to re-experience like some of like 80s and 80s music that my mom knew. And so it was kind of fun like that. One night I came home at 10 o'clock at night and found her sitting alone in the dark with the guitar playing with the TV. And I'm like, do you want to turn on the light? She's like, oh man, it's dark.
That's the best.
Wait, Trevor, say it ain't so.
I know, I'm sorry. Sorry, I had to. Hope we don't get kicked off Twitch. I have to read this because Jay put it in the chat and it made me laugh really hard. I definitely wasn't playing Mario Party last Friday and definitely didn't yell at everyone when Monty Mole found a hidden block on the third turn. No anger at all from me.
That's great.
Nerd Magic 92, Ultima 2. Oh man, Ultima series. I have ADHD and it allowed me to exercise my mind for long periods of time while also giving my hand something to do. And again, man, ADHD and a lot of you know, neurodivergent things with games. It's just they helped so much. Psyf2, this is where we were talking about Idle Champions being on all the things. All of the systems are belong to Idle Champions. I like it.
All your games belong to us.
Exactly. Let's see. Something really witty says, I know for me, playing micromanagement games specifically allowed me some control in my life from a young age. So it was still a love of micromanagement games to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Mom to three Reds comes back and says, I learned to count from decks of cards at the age of 2.
Cribbage.
Those were great for counting. I remember that.
Yep. Let's see. I'm trying to skip over some of them that and just go to the ones that people were talking about. What helped them. Though it seems that
Final Fantasy taught me to read, basically. Like read quickly. I got so good at reading the screen that I just cranked it up to fastest speed and was like, good.
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm just sitting there just like, okay, reading along, and the next one. Let's see. I think, this was just something really witty comes back. It says, this is the first time I've ever heard someone compare Dark Souls to the Zelda games, but it makes sense, actually. Let me see here. My husband and I mainly play co-op games for this reason. Mario Golf just came out though. That's all the Mario like mini game ones. It's so great how they're like, it's so fun and friendly and awesome, and everyone yells at each other. Everyone does it.
And I think that's the best part of games is sort of the
Yelling at
containment of
each
the
other?
yelling. No, but it's kind of like we enter this space together where certain things are okay, and then when we're done, the yelling's done too.
Yeah.
And if the yelling isn't done, find new people to play with. You know, 'cause that's no fun.
Oh, Herkwork says sorry taught sarcasm. I love that. I love that so much.
I can see how that would be.
Oh, Overcooked was just brought up in the chat.
Oh,
gosh.
No, Can't do it. So I want to mention a special thing that it's really interesting to see which games jive with your capabilities and which ones are people don't like because it just doesn't play to their strengths in a really tangible way. With my autism and with my processing issues and working memory issues, Overcooked is an absolute nightmare because one of the things you have to do is communicate with each other in a fast-paced environment. And especially for a lot of us on the spectrum, we have varying degrees of verbal dyspraxia where we can't talk when we get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes, in a safe enough environment, it's kind of hilarious for me to be like, you'd think lettuce! Lettuce!
So bad. And I can see what a fun disaster.
Why are you yelling lettuce? That's what I needed you to get 5 minutes ago.
Onions now. Onions now. Oh my God. And I'm so directionally challenged when I'm playing so that how they've got with the Overcooked things are moving along, you've got it's just like platformers as well like that. I was always in Mario games, I was always dying, screaming as I went down, right? So yeah, Overcooked was definitely a challenge.
My problem with that one is it doesn't matter what colors anyone is on that screen, I will think I am the wrong person constantly. Constantly. Yeah. I'm like, why am I over at the hamburger? Oh, that's not me.
Why did you fall off Rainbow Road again? Well, because I'm not in. I'm the one in the lower right. Oh God!
Right? Oh my God! Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
Let's see. There's a lot of really good messages in here. I'm having trouble sifting through them. But let me see if I can get one more in here. Oh, I like this. Chamber X77 says, I think MMOs are what helped me learn to type so fast. I never would have made it into a typing class.
It's true.
That was AOL Instant Messenger for me. Goodbye. Oh God, I miss away messages. But I think that is all the time we've got for today's episode. Mitra, Dr. B, where can people find you? And if they want to get in contact with you, so just see what you're up to on social media.
People can find me on Twitter at Mitra Jordan, and my website, mitrajordan.com. I'm around, but not as around as Dr. B.
I've started professionally saying when people ask, what do you do? I'm like, I'm around.
Right?
I get around.
I still like what Greg Miller says. I'm a big deal to a small group of people.
I'm a medium deal to an even smaller group of people. So, first of all, give Take This a follow at TakeThis.org on all the socials. We've got content coming out semi-regularly these days. Go to takethis.org for mental health resources and to check out what we're up to. But if you want to follow me personally, I am the Dr. B, TheeDoctorB, right down y'all.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can find me doing what I'm doing, probably ranting about hats or D&D or like the latest batch of beer I made that didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. Or, that recipe was flawed that they gave me. There was no coriander in that, and that was a problem, and they added too much lime.
How dare they? Think of the children. Well, wait, no.
Okay. No. It'll probably make good chili or good beer bread. It's a thing. You can make it.
Okay.
I'm going to do it.
You can find me on the Difficulty Class podcast every Friday, as well as Champions Lore every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on twitch.tv/CND Games, which is right here right now. Well, not tomorrow. Not now. This is now. Anywho, you can also find me on Twitter at the Treavor. There's an A hiding in there. There are some things and stuff happening on the channel this week. Today, if you're here live in the chat, stick around at 1 p.m. for Bardic Inspiration. And then tomorrow, we've got a bunch of things going on because it is the Summer Spectacular. I don't know why I did that. starting at 9 a.m. with Lauren's Magnificent Morning. Champions Laura at 11 a.m. We'll be talking about some very interesting characters, yes. And then there's going to be Bardic Inspiration live at 12 to 1. Mars' Guiding Hand at 1 to 3. The Sketching Hour 3 to 4. And then at 4 to 7, Storyteller Mars Presents is back, and I will be playing Garlock again, and he's had some upgrades, and it's really cool. So I hope you all come hang out with that. Also, we're going to have a special guest. Robo-Goblin is joining us for this adventure. Jumping from the chat to the screen.
Yes!
Yeah. So please come hang out, enjoy the shows, and have a fun time. And there's going to be a lot of awesome stuff to do. Before we head out, I want to thank Jay for moderating the chat as always, because you do a fantastic job.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you to Codename Entertainment and TakeThis.org for giving us an opportunity to have these discussions. If you missed any part of this show, you can listen to it later as a podcast at 2 p.m. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes that you want us to talk about, you can send those into championspsychology@codenameentertainment.com. And I think that is all the things I have to run over. So that is going to do it for this week's episode. Until next week, take care of yourself.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.